Go for it.
Happy Monday, y'all. Welcome back to the Huddle, your behind-the-scenes look at all the political news that came out this weekend. And by goodness, there was a lot of political news, so we're going to dig into it all. But just to start, it is 20 degrees outside my house, and the worst part is there's no snow. There should be a rule that when it's freezing like this, we should at least have a little frosting on the ground.
Come to New York. There's a lot on the ground. Yep.
Yeah.
It snowed multiple times yesterday, so it is,
I'm
and
jealous.
it's not melting because it's so cold. So yeah.
Does anybody ever make snowmans and
Oh
snowmen
yeah,
in the
absolutely. Sledding, yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Go walk in Central Park. They're inappropriate snowmen. There's nice snowmen.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Non-binary snowman.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question about which sex they are based on some of the snowmen I saw. But
Okay.
yes.
Sean, your weekend, no snow for you here in DC, but
Oh, they're actually. I took. We got. I mean, I don't know where you're a little bit further west than I am, but like
I am.
We got a full coating. But yeah, it was good. I actually got like if my to-do list was 1 to 10, I got to 2.5, which is kind of a big deal. And then obviously yesterday was spent in glory watching the New England Patriots just drive to victory and head off to Denver next week.
You mean the team that made the least number of turnovers?
Win's a win, bro.
That's it.
Congrats,
I don't know what a turnover is. Other than isn't that something?
It's like when you hit the ball out of the park.
In it? Yeah. Apples
when it goes out of the park.
Oh, okay. All over my head. All right, let's talk news here. So today on the show, we're going to dig into the latest with Minnesota and tensions rising there and what the president's going to do since he's in this sort of pickle right now. We'll discuss the latest in the fight over Greenland, new discussions about tariffs and retaliatory tariffs at the same time. So good time on that. President Trump and former Vice President Kamala Harris making primary moves. We'll talk about some stuff going on sort of on the peripheral, not sort of leading the headlines, but stuff we should be noting regardless. Israel's growing Gaza's frustration, or rather frustration, we should say, with the administration and some stuff we're learning about the new sort of next steps for Gaza, according to the administration. And then lastly, we'll do this Media Monday segment where we're going to talk about, among other things, Don Lemon joining anti-ICE protesters taking over this church, which is going viral on the right. I know Sean has very strong feelings on this, so we'll get to that as well. Daybook, first of all. The World Economic Forum kicks off today in Davos, Switzerland. Obviously, huge stakes. There's going to be a lot of world leaders there, likely some bilateral conversations, I would think, right, Sean, once the president arrives tomorrow.
A little hot chocolate and some conversations in the Swiss
lovely.
Hot chocolate and world diplomacy.
Yeah. The funny part is it's always difficult to get around there. So I imagine when the president's there, it's even more challenging.
They're taking over a church, apparently. That's what we're doing. Like the U.S. delegation is commandeered I don't know if it's an old church or a current church, but apparently that's the place to be. That's the club. That's Club Davos in Trump language here.
Well, my understanding is
so the playlist will come with them.
Every country or a lot of corporations have these, they call them houses. And it's like, I think the idea is they want to do counter programming there to the extent it's like, come over and hear about tariffs and capitalism.
There you go. And
the end of DEI.
Oh, the irony of squaring those two words. Come hear about tariffs and capitalism.
But I will say it'll be funny. Like, I wonder if you have like celebrities, like it's like a convention you have.
Yeah.
Tommy Two-Tone and Vanilla Ice rapping at the table. And I don't know.
Yep. And then in another section, the president going head to head with the leaders of Denmark over Greenland. Interesting. Okay, so he's not gonna. The president won't be there until it sounds like tomorrow. It's Wednesdays when he's gonna give the speech.
correct.
Tonight at 7:50, him and Secretary of State Marco Rubio are heading to the football national championship in Miami. You've got Indiana University and University of Miami. Do either of you have a dog in this fight?
No.
I'd say Indiana.
I was going to say I don't have a dog, but I love the turnaround story of Indiana.
Yeah, totally.
So I would say that if I want it, I mean, to the extent that I'll stay up. It's interesting though what the spread is, right, Dan? I think the spread's very like 10 points Indiana.
Yeah, I will say though, as a kid in the 80s, I loved Miami's kind of bad boy renegade. As a kid in Connecticut, I thought that was the coolest thing.
Like Crockett and Tubbs.
Yeah, the Catholics, convicts, the whole battle against Notre Dame all those years. So yep, we'll see, Rachel. Stay tuned.
Speaker Mike Johnson is headed to the UK. Interesting timing again with the Greenland escalation and the terrorist discussion.
Parliament.
He's going to address Parliament tomorrow. And over the weekend, he told the BBC that diplomatic channels are the way to go on Greenland, though he did not criticize the president point blank, which we wouldn't expect him to do. Tomorrow, you have the newly elected New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill is going to be inaugurated. Abigail Spanberger was inaugurated over the weekend. We were talking a little bit about this. One of her first moves was to say that local law enforcement will not be cooperating with ICE, certainly sending a signal. And again, as somebody who covered her as a moderate for so long, I'm shocked by this. Dan, I know you're not, but I'm
not. And in fact, I think if you looked at polling, she'd be on safe ground with moderates today. I mean, that's a data point.
Tells you where the party is. It certainly tells you where the party is and the change over the past few years.
Not just the party.
All politics is a pendulum. So before we jump in, let's do a word from our sponsors. We've got two today, and I'll kick off the first one. So guys, what if your only New Year's resolution this year was to get better sleep? Just imagine how much more energy you have when you wake up to do the huddle or watch the huddle in the morning. You'd handle stress better. Pretty much all your goals would be easier, whether it's running that extra mile or pushing harder in that hot yoga class. And that's why the smart way to start 2026 is with CBD from CB Distillery. Get this, over 90% of CBD customers say they sleep better with CBD. And that's pretty tough to beat because when you sleep better, you obviously feel better and perform better the next day. And CB Distillery has options for more than sleep. You can also get solutions for stress relief, for mood, and for pain after workouts, which apparently is a huge hit. Everyone's saying it's great right now. And you can shop the benefits easily to sort of find what you're looking for, although we should note that specific product availability depends on where you live, on your individual state regulations. Everything from CB Distillery is premium quality. It's third-party tested, and it's free of artificial dyes and fillers. And again, people are raving about it right now. They have over 2 million happy customers and a 100% money back guarantee. So
I got family members who use it, who swear by it and love it. And
I'm looking in the chat. Lots of people love this.
Yeah,
there you go. There you go. So if you're ready to start the year off right and get better sleep, go to cbdistillery.com and use my code HUDDLE, HUDDLE, for 25% off. That's cbdistillery.com, code HUDDLE, cbdistillery.com.
That's right.
Awesome.
We've got another.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, but talking about sleep.
Well.
Yeah, talking about sleep. Well, it is look, it's a federal holiday. I literally have my Cozy Earth pajama bottoms still on right now. You're talking about great sleep. You can't, the pajama bottoms, the joggers, the towels, the blanket. There's nothing. You guys heard me talk about this forever. The eye mask. I'm covered from head to toe in Cozy Earth, and it was the biggest Christmas gift that the family got. Everybody got something from Cozy Earth, I think. And I get texts from my mother-in-law the other day. I love this stuff. It's so comfortable. It's soft. I'm telling you, you will not go wrong. Was spent part of the weekend getting rid of stuff, and there's so many pairs of joggers that I had that I'm like out. And I have now replaced them all with Cozy Earth. So if you go to CozyEarth.com, use code HUDDLE, 20% off site-wide. Some exclusions apply.
Perfect. Thank you to both.
Yes.
Let's jump in. Let's go right to Minnesota. So Minnesota obviously remains this sort of tinderbox right now with protesters clashing with ICE. I want to talk today, though, about how this sort of puts the president in this sort of no-win situation. I mean, on the one hand, they're watching these, escalating protests, the takeover of a church by anti-ICE protesters. There was a conservative influencer over the weekend who was beaten up. Viral videos, by a viral video of an ICE agent saying that people were impeding him trying to arrest a child sex offender. They have at the ready 1,500 active duty Army paratroopers on standby right now, ready to go in. The FBI is also asking for volunteers to head into the state. But on the other hand, the president's team, political team, they're looking at this polling right now and they know they're cratering, right? People are losing support for ICE. They are losing swing voters and minority voters over this issue. And that's obviously two demographics that are really important to the 2024 coalition, very important in the midterms. And they're suggesting that the White House sort of recalibrate right now. So let's just start there. Sean, how can the White House recalibrate this issue when things are escalating right now and they're trying to get a hold of, what's going on the ground without the political blowback?
So I think a couple of things. One, Dan noted this earlier this morning when we were on News Nation, that it's difficult when both sides don't want to back down. So that's just the premise of this. But I do think that we, at least from my side, again, I'll let Dan give his piece, but this was a legal, lawful operation. And so now to say, how do you take it down? How do you, there are people that are impeding it. So either you allow them to get away with this. Let's remember the premise. A, people are in the country illegally. B, there was illegal fraud going on there, which is why they surged to begin with. And 3, now you have citizens blocking legal operations. So you've got 3 wrongs. And I think the administration's view is, why are we the ones to back down? This is, to me, a jump ball. The administration rightly should be concerned, politically speaking, about the perception of what happens. Number 2, the president's about to leave the country. So what do you want to do domestically if you're not going to be here? And then 3 is, you do have to wonder, do the Democrats at some point overplay their hand, like with Walz calling the, atrocities and their Gestapo force and all this stuff? At some point, does this springboard back to them? And do you take the chance that maybe it goes back to them? So I think there's a lot of probable debate about what they should do.
Yeah.
But I look, part of this is you've got to question yourself whether on the policy, if we're there to do a legal operation, why should we back down? I think is pretty much the mentality.
But I think, yeah.
Go ahead, Dan, jump in.
I mean, I think the problem is, and I said this, Sean, you referenced it earlier, this started, all of this in Minneapolis, over Somalian child care fraud, okay? Worthy of questioning, worthy of investigating. Usually that's the Department of Justice, Department of Labor. They went in a different direction, okay? So I think part of the problem is the initial reason for all of this is really not even in the headlines anymore, right? This has now become a little bit of who's what is biggest in the neighborhood, because what you have is both sides feel like we simply cannot back down. The Trump people feel like, hey, we have a right to do this. This is what we got elected on. We're going after criminals. The other side of it is, in the process of going after criminals, it is pretty clear you are, kind of sweeping up or stopping people who are not criminals. In some instances, who are U.S. citizens, right? Who don't have their wallet on them at that moment. And so you have Blue America feeling like we have to take a stand. The administration, to Sean's point, is we cannot back down. If Blue America wins, pushing back against ICE, it's going to snowball. But I go back to independents and people in the middle who decide elections. The images, to Sean's point, of Democrats in a church are not good. The images of multiple troops with huge weaponry knocking on doors in, middle-class neighborhoods is not good either. Yeah. And so I think it is a little bit of a jump ball in that, Democrats get too out of control. It's like the tail wagging the dog. But right now, you can't argue that the politics are on the administration side anymore on this. They're not.
Right.
Dan, the Justice Department announced this weekend that they're probing Minneapolis Mayor Frey and Governor Walz for obstructing. They've obviously responded, said they're just that the DOJ is trying to intimidate them from speaking out. But But I listened to the interview that Mayor Frey did on CNN yesterday morning, and again, he used words like invaded Minnesota, or under siege, occupied, unconstitutional, that their protesters are resisting being invaded by our own federal government. So I guess my question is, like, have Democrats, well, they haven't, have Democrats done enough to sort of encourage violence to don't do violence, encourage peaceful protests? And if not, like, does this sort of language raise to, the standard of obstruction, would you say?
Oh, it's hard to kind of say a cause and effect, but I will say the language is not good. I think Jacob Fry's looked terrible almost this whole time. I think Tim Walz is the same. This goes to the idea of when you say something is like this existential crisis, people hear it and think I have to take matters into my own hands and go do crazy things. Just like I think the same is true at times with the language that the right uses to describe people. But it is not good. I think I'm looking at people like Amy Klobuchar, people who want to run. We haven't talked about it yet, but there is an open Senate seat in Minnesota. There is a Democratic primary between a kind of moderate Annie Craig and a more progressive candidate. They are going at each other now over who can be the most anti-ICE candidate, which is a harbinger of what I think is going to come in the Democratic Party. Because we talked about Spanberger, there is this feeling now the politics are on our side. Therefore, people are like, let's go to 11 on this. So it is a problem. Our leadership in Minnesota looks terrible right now, but I wouldn't quite say it is a cause and effect. Just like when Trump says crazy things, Republicans say that doesn't, that he's not instructing people to go do crazy things.
I haven't seen the comments by Angie Craig, but I mean, if she's trying to get to the left of her opponent, like that, like again, it's the same, like you said, Abigail Spanberger situation. Angie Craig, having covered the House, she was for a long time considered, the centrist, moderate, pragmatic voice amongst Democrats in the House, somebody who would stand up for law enforcement, or you would think stand up for ICE. But the fact that, I mean, it's so fascinating. I mean, the Democrats just going so far to the left on this. Go ahead, Sean.
I just want to make one point, and I know that like both sides at different times have their hypocrisy moments, so I'll concede that. But I will say that there is something rich about the current situation, right? So Jacob Fry, as you said, is using, and Tim Walz are using all this rhetoric. They're basically, we want to protect people that are in Minnesota illegally, including criminals, but we want to keep out legal law enforcement from coming into our state. They call that the invasion. The invasion is when, frankly, people came into the country illegally. Secondly, Tim Walz during COVID deployed the National Guard to go after Minnesotans. So for him now to talk about an invasion and constitutional rights, I mean, look, again, remember, go to the videotape, take a look at how Tim Walz acted during COVID, and then come back.
Let's move on to Greenland. So the president says, well, he did say that the U.S. would take Greenland by the easy way or the hard way. And we're starting to get a sense of what he meant by the hard way. This weekend, he announced a 10% tariff on a number of European countries that would roll out, I believe, February 1st, if Greenland doesn't sell. And this will go to an additional 25% starting June 1st if Greenland still resists. So essentially, we're going to now be punishing other European countries with tariffs should Greenland refuse to sell. Sean, I have been hearing from Republicans privately that they were hoping that in 2026, the president would actually go the opposite way on tariffs, like sort of, step off the gas. I mean, this is again, the opposite here. How far is he willing to go on this?
Well, there's two things. One, and again, no one knows, just to be clear, but there's a lot of tea leaf readers that think tomorrow the court could announce its tariff case. And if not tomorrow, it's going to be relatively soon. So we'll know. I mean, he might be playing with his last card in the deck if that's the case. Although, I mean, again, just to be clear, there are what they call dispute mechanisms, 232s, 338s, that they take longer. And we'll talk about the politics depending on how the case comes down when it comes down, because I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. But secondly, like, I just think that the approach to Greenland, if you really want, like, we have the ability, we have an agreement with Denmark that we can come in and expand our military footprint. We've had that for like 100 years. And we used to have, now we've got one space base, but we used to have, I think it was up to 17 different type of outposts there. If I were the administration, I agree with what he's doing, why he's doing this. It is in our strategic national interest unequivocally. But I think that they need to make a better case. They need to go out there and say to the American people, this is what we're doing, this is why, and this is going to happen. And secondly, if I were look, I will say this, I'm not an expert on our acquisition of Alaska, but if you know people from Alaska, they get a payment every month for being in Alaska.
Yep.
Right? If I were the administration, somebody this weekend close to me suggested a sovereign wealth fund that people could, there would be that the people of Greenland would benefit from, or maybe it's because of the rare earth minerals. But I would create a case to make it more attractive to the people of Greenland to say, hey, we should do this, and here's why, and here's how you'll benefit. I'm not sure going in right now. Clearly, they're not excited about it. You're not getting the American people excited about it. And so my point is, I think it's the right thing to do. Maybe the approach needs to be recalibrated.
Yeah. Greenlanders were out protesting en masse this weekend. There's tons of polls showing this weekend that even Republicans don't love this idea. And then, by the way, we have Europeans now threatening to retaliate if these 10% tariffs go through. Dan, how are you looking at this? I mean, obviously, more tariffs is going to make it harder for prices to come down. It's a midterm year. I mean, how are you taking this on?
It's the chaos train. I mean, the other thing that we haven't mentioned is Trump sent a letter to the head of Denmark and starts the letter about kind of how offended he is he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize.
Let me read a little bit from it and then continue.
Sure.
Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but now can think about what is good and proper for the United States of America.
So look, I mean, there's no way to other than read that. Then now he is making it personal, right? So it never looks good when you lead with I versus like the country. 2, they keep talking about Russia, okay? He literally has invited Putin to be on the peace board in Gaza. So if we're really worried about our strategic interests and, oil and resources, and we're worried about the Russians, what are you doing inviting Vladimir Putin to the table in Gaza? It totally, I think, to the average person, you hear all of this, you hear what Sean just said, you don't want troops there, or us using troops to take it. Rachel, you've made this point. I don't know where the $900 billion is coming from. I would assume Congress is going to have to appropriate this. So that $900 billion is coming at the expense of fill in the blank, okay, from a domestic standpoint. This to me is like political insanity. I don't think any swing voter sitting there thinking that a boy. This is what I vote.
That's why I said. For a million reasons, I think they should talk about the financing aspect of this instead of just paying them off. And maybe, I mean, again, there was a huge benefit, obviously, in our country when it comes to like manifest destiny, how we picked up additional properties, right? But if you're not going to articulate that, they did a great job in Venezuela. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why it matters to you, whether you agree or not. I think most voters go, okay, I get that there's a nexus to me. I think they need to do a better job of doing that in Greenland.
Yeah, I just keep coming back to, what I was hearing at the end of last year from, people in the admin, which was like there was going to be this hard pivot away from foreign policy. And
that's it's says that though, it just doesn't.
Rachel, maybe you.
Well, but here's the thing: it seems like the president is very clearly in legacy mode, Sean. Right? Like he's clearly thinking about how he's going to be remembered and wants to show this muscle on the international stage. Right? Is that fair?
It's literally a hard pivot to your point into foreign policy, and I think it's because he can control it. He can control the script. He can control the show. He doesn't need Congress. It is Trump against the world, which he likes. He likes the MAGA versus, everybody else. But boy, man, the average voter, just like when Biden said Ukraine is about the, freedom and democracy and the free world. And the average voter's like, huh?
Last quick question on this, and then we got to move. Will the tariffs be delayed by February 1st? Yes or no?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Okay, both of you say yes. Okay. All right, let's talk about the president and Harris making primary moves. So Black women are turning out for Kamala Harris on this tour that she's been doing. New reports show she remains popular in the South with the Black community. Dan, many people, myself included, may sometimes roll their eyes when they think about the notion of her winning another primary in 2028. But this sort of deep-rooted, of course you do, this sort of deep-rooted support for her can't be dismissed, right?
100%. And I think this is where, look, I like you, am very skeptical of her to become the next president of the United States, to actually win a general election. But this is where you got to look at the map. I know, I think it was 13 states submitted to go in that Super Tuesday window here that the DNC is going to now pick. But she has two constituencies that are huge in a Democratic primary. One is Black women, and two is frankly, a segment of white women. You have to now look at every candidate, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, and say, what is their coalition? Who are the segments of voters in each of these states that are going to kind of come together to get them, let's say 30, 35%, maybe even higher of the vote? If South Carolina goes first, and there are a couple of Virginia's applied, Georgia, Harris is going to start in a very strong place. And if you pick up steam, who knows? So I think I can't believe I'm going to say this. She very well may be a tier 1 candidate, even though it gives me heartburn, along with Newsom and probably Shapiro and maybe AOC, because of the coalition she's going to bring to the table from day one.
Sean's over there jumping and cheering.
I think Dan's analysis is spot on. Like, look, the playing field matters. And that's why, like, when you even look at a sports team, they'll talk about, home games versus away games when you play in Denver, as the Patriots will this weekend. There's an oxygen issue. Like, so you get there early. I mean, like, and if she has a home game, politically speaking, that's huge. The question, though, is like anything else, regular season versus the playoffs. And I think she might be able to pull off a couple primary wins. But I also believe that, frankly, getting through a general election would be impossible, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Well, she's got huge problems with men. She has huge problems with Latinos, right, and young Black men. I mean, you can pick apart politically why she is a terrible general election candidate, but you can't win the general.
I posted this clip. Kara Swisher did this.
It's brutal.
Brutal.
Right?
I posted this on my Instagram the other day. Maybe I'll post it again because it's a holiday. And the long and short of it is, Kara Swisher says, "Hey, we're backstage. We're having this discussion about Bobby Kennedy and some health issue." And they laugh about it. And Kamala Harris laughs and says, "Ha, that's crazy," or whatever. And then Swisher says, we go on stage and I bring it up. And Kamala gets all indignant. "How dare you bring this up?" And da-da-da-da. And this is da-da-da-da, the evil. And she goes, "You got to be kidding. This woman is laughing about it backstage." And then acts. And she goes, if you're that phony and in front of people that are your supporters, I just don't know how you I think, and after the campaign you ran, I think the knives are out. And
I'm sorry, which campaign was that, 20 or 24 or both?
What, by the way, do you want to talk about... Do you want to mention
the both terrible
book?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's very quickly mention, speaking of the knives being out, Josh Shapiro is releasing some excerpts from his book that comes out later this month. One of them says that he was asked if he was an agent for Israel during the VP vetting process, which obviously is not a good look, right? Because Jewish. Go ahead.
I actually, maybe you guys will think that that's nuts, but I thought a bunch of the other things were kind of crazy that he mentioned, but like, It's sort of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? So everyone talks about these vetting processes, and it's like we talk about Tim Walz and stuff. If you don't ask the question, I mean, I know it might sound silly and offensive in a book as a standalone question, but again, if there was, like, you see all the crazy crap that goes out here, the conspiracy theory, I don't think that they actually asked him because they thought he might be an agent of Mossad or something. But I think the point is that when you're going through a vetting process, you want to say, we asked about that, asked and answered, and was good. I think he's trying to manufacture something in that. But I will say there's a lot of other.
That's the thing.
Dan, what other nuggets have jumped out to you?
Well, here's the biggest nugget is he doesn't like Harris. Harris doesn't like him. she tried to, score some cheap shots with him that he was kind of measuring drapes when she hadn't, it was her choice. And he is basically saying like her questions were out of line. And right. So when we talk about Harris, we talk about Shapiro, we talked about Ro Khanna hitting Gavin Newsom last week. Now is when you're going to start to see people taking shots. And those two, Harris and Shapiro, do not like each other.
Yeah. We have to talk about the long knife coming for Senator Bill
speaking of not
Cassidy.
liking each other, segue.
Yes.
By the way, just last one. Sorry, I know I do this, but like what Dan said can't be underscored enough. Like this is full on between Rahm going after Gavin, Shapiro now coming back after Kamala after she went after him. Like this is the new phase, which is like the subtle backstabbing aspect that we're getting into,
or front stabbing. And by the way, I love it. Campaign season, here we come.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to follow, fun to follow, I will say. As I was saying, the long knife finally coming for Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. The president endorsed against him this weekend backing House member Julia Letlow before she even decided, guys, to run. Now, this may have surprised some Republicans, but I will say this did not surprise me. Cassidy, you guys may know, voted. Yes, he voted for RFK in terms of confirmation, but he voted to impeach the president just a few years ago. And let's keep in mind, President Trump has a long memory. So it was sort of a matter of time, in my view, that this was going to happen. But my question for you, Sean, is what does this do, if anything, to the relationship between President Trump and Senate Republicans? It sounds like John Thune, the majority leader, was on the phone with him Friday trying to talk him out of this, and obviously failed. Like, what does this mean? Like, does it affect that?
So it's a great question. Let me just say this. There are three big primary Republican notes that happened over the weekend. This Cassidy issue with Julia Letlow, who is a congresswoman down there. She replaced her husband, Luke, after he passed away from COVID 3 weeks after getting elected. And not just did the president encourage her to run, she hasn't even said she's running. He endorsed her prior to that. Tony Lyons' Maha PAC came out and said, if she does get in, which we encourage her to do, we're in for $1 million already. That's a big deal. Kentucky, you had Elon Musk pledge $10 million to Nate Morris's campaign. That's not only a big dollar amount, that's a big tell. That says, hey, everybody else, the water's warm, jump in. I think that's not just the dollar amount is what happened. And then obviously,
John, do you think Elon's coordinating with JD Vance, by the way?
Well, that's what I was saying that right. Dan, that's a great question, because that's, to me, that was the big tell. That's why the dollar amount was important, but not as much as this was a bat signal that the water's warm. The team is behind Nate Morris. Jump in. And then obviously in Alabama, the president got out. I think, interestingly, in Alabama, I consider what's happened between Roy Moore and Luther Strange, like the idea that the president got involved in a primary in Alabama this early, I was a little taken back by. So that just sets the stage. The one thing about all three of those, for the most part, with the, Kentucky maybe being a little bit on the competitive side, I was intrigued that not one of them will really affect the general. Like, you're going to win Alabama, you're going to win Louisiana. But this gets back to the question you're asking, Rachel. This, like, between Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House and Bill Cassidy in the Senate, for at least now, Susan Collins, we saw him go after her the other day. Like, we need these votes between now and then. And if you're Bill Cassidy and you don't have the president, there's two. One tactic is just say, hey, I'm still with him. I wish I had gotten his support, and try to still hug him. Or you run scorched earth and say, I'm my own man. I've always worked for Louisiana. I'm going to continue to fight for Louisiana, blah, blah, blah. But in either scenario, when you have very slim majorities in the House and in the Senate, you're going to need those votes on committee and on the floor. And I'm just wondering, was that the right call at this moment?
It sounds like there was a nugget in the New York Times saying that the president told Letlow he would support her as early as March, but suggested he has to wait a bit, hold off a bit, because of the concern over votes. And let's remember that Cassidy would play a huge role in a Reconciliation 2.0 bill if they want to move a healthcare bill. Yep. So he could really become,
or another Fed for the president nominee.
Or again, you're right. He could take the opposite approach. I think and hope he changes his dog in the fight here. But we'll have to see. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
We need to just flag for people how unprecedented it is, or rare, that a sitting president endorses a primary challenge to a member of his or her own party and outright, like, as you said, Sean, endorses before she even gets in. I mean, to me, this is Trump. You mentioned all those people, Sean, Marjorie Taylor Greene, others. It is Trump saying, don't blank with me, right? Yeah. That if you cross me, I will take you out politically, which, he has a right to do. I can't imagine John Cornyn feels very good today in Texas right now.
That's different, though.
Trump has not endorsed.
Yeah, but he has not been anything close to what he didn't vote for it.
But to Dan's point, that's a shot over the bow, baby.
John Cornyn has not been a rebel rouser. John Cornyn has not been at the front of the cheerleading crowd either. And Trump would love
lately.
So I mean, but you can see. So I think it's really fascinating. I'm going to watch JD Vance here on all of this. Does Elon Musk get into Texas? But I think in Louisiana, boy, Trump is really, throwing a haymaker within his party. Say, get in line, stay in line.
I want to move quickly through this next segment because we have a good conversation for Media Monday. We're going to also first here talk about Israel's growing Gaza frustration. So there's tension erupting right now between Israeli leaders and the President Trump's administration. You had Bibi Netanyahu. He's been one of the most vocal people to come out and push back on new details we're seeing about the president's board of peace for rebuilding Gaza. Firstly, the administration says they want countries to pay $1 billion for permanent entry to be part of the board of peace. Some people are not happy with that. A lot of countries sort of pushing back on that. But Bibi says this doesn't compute with their own policies, and it could be for another reason. It sounds like the president wants to put Turkey's foreign minister and a senior Qatari official on this board, and then Netanyahu has insisted that those countries have no role in governing Gaza in the future. One White House administration official said Bibi wasn't consulted on the committee membership because he doesn't have a say. If he wants us to deal with Gaza, it has to be our way. So Dan, you flagged this story for us. Why don't you jump in there first about these tensions?
I mean, look, we've talked about this for a long time, that Netanyahu has frustrated U.S. presidents of both parties for 30 years. Trump, at the end of his first term, was not on speaking terms with Netanyahu anymore. The fact that Netanyahu put a statement out, they didn't just leak it. They didn't do an anonymous quote. It was a written statement from Netanyahu criticizing what is going on. Netanyahu came to Mar-a-Lago to talk about Iran recently and also about Gaza. By most accounts, Israel wants to go back in with their military. There's a vacuum on the ground. They do not like what they're seeing. They feel like the job is not finished. At the same time, Trump wants peace. Trump wants to start developing. Trump's got allies in the Middle East who like the peace right now. And so I think it's fascinating that the White House is telling Netanyahu, it is our way and you're not relevant. Boy, I'll be really curious to see where this goes. I really will. I think it's still a tinderbox.
Yeah. Let's move to Media Monday, actually, unless, Sean, you had anything you wanted to add into that.
Sure.
Yeah. Let's we've got to hit something that's really taken off on the right, going viral, and that is this storming of a church in Minnesota by anti-ICE protesters. Let's bring up our first element just to look at what happened here.
So you can see the protesters here have gathered over here. They're in the middle of the church. In the beginning of the church service, the pastor was speaking, and Nakima stood up and said her piece. And then the protesters surrounded her, but this is a clandestine mission.
Clandestine mission. Let's bring up our second element here, which is focused on Don Lemon talking to.
Well, that was his voice, by the way.
Yes, that was his voice. And reminder, Don Lemon was fired from CNN. He's now sort of an independent media doing his own thing. Let's bring up element 2 of him talking.
Unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here. Yes. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship. Yeah. We're here to worship. Okay.
Thank you very much.
There is a difference between being a journalist following along to cover a protest, cover some sort of demonstration. I mean, we said journalists following along with the January 6th rioters in the Capitol. But what Don Lemon is doing right there is very much, in line with the anti-ICE protesters. He's on their side. He's saying they have a right to storm the church. He's going way beyond just being there and observing. He seems to be sort of, rallying these people and stirring them up even more. Not a great look, obviously. Sean, you flagged this for us.
Yeah. So number one, he's not a journalist. I mean, let's not confuse.
That is totally fair, given what he just said.
He's an activist. He always has been, and he is now. I've never sworn on the show, and I won't do it now, but I will say this. Don Lemon is a disrespectful POS. And if you need to Google that, to go into a Sunday service where people are worshiping God and to claim that you have a constitutional right to do that is one of the lowest, most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life. The idea that they think that, do you have a right? First of all, it is a private, you don't have a right. That's just not true. Okay. And for him to say, I have a right to be here, it's a First Amendment, it's so disgusting and inappropriate and wrong. The idea that there's not more outrage and that it's a right-leaning issue is just what's wrong. The idea that there's not equal outrage, again, by saying, no, there's a line, you crossed it, you're wrong, is so what's going on right now. The idea that people, that this is not getting coverage anywhere else is literally what's wrong right now. I'm so disgusted by that. Yeah. And that this guy's going to become some kind of a hero to the left because he stormed in the middle of a church service and accosted the pastor and then said, I have a right to be here and I'm a Christian. I actually will pray for that dude today and hope to God that God comes down to him and says, you're a moron. Don't ever do this again. Atone for your sins.
Shouldn't local law enforcement be helping the parishioners in this situation?
Well, I mean, hold on a second. The doors of the church were open, right? So anyone, when the doors of a church are open, can walk in. It is a terrible look to interrupt a church service, just like it's a terrible look to interrupt a classroom. People go there to kind of seek relief, to seek inspiration, to make peace literally and figuratively. So I think it is a terrible look. I think the average person who goes to church on Sunday looks at that and thinks, if that happened in my community, at my church, I would be upset, right?
I would be more than upset.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So I think from a media standpoint, what I think you're seeing with Don Lemon is we've talked about this, kind of journalists, these independent journalists on the street with their camcorders, kind of trying to make news. I'm sure he wants imagery. He wants, the pastor criticizing ICE to take it and say, see, look, the pastor. And I know there was the opposite. They think the pastor was part of ICE or is part of ICE. It's crazy. I mean, all of this is just this feeling of both sides trying to get the other. I hear a lot of Democrats who would tell you that they wish, like the Pope and others who have spoken out about what's happening on immigration, that this is not how you treat people, not what the Bible tells you about how to treat people. So, everyone's trying to get their aha moment on camera.
But wait, I just want to put this out as a PSA in case Don's listening. If you come to my church, I will not react the same way that pastor did. I will spend Monday in confession, atoning for my sins for what I will do, just for the record. But I
don't the dad and Landman who's like, this is how I would have handled it.
but I will say that what upsets me on this whole thing is that this treat people if you don't like what ICE is doing, change the law.
But Sean, hold on. Here's the thing, though, you got to be careful about. You have instances now where ICE has stopped people. The people have said, hey, I'm an American citizen. And they're like, where are your papers? Where are your papers? And the person's like, hey, okay, wait, hold on a sec. I don't. And these people with whistles and other things start pointing, and the ICE agents have basically peeled out. On the left, what they're saying is, oh, that's not lawful what they were starting to do. And that's why they ran away. Now, I hear you. This is why it's spinning out of control, right? Because everyone is looking to get the other side. You're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. I hate that now you have these people walking around with cell phone cameras hunting for wrongdoing, almost trying to cause wrongdoing. But that's where there's the left is saying enough.
It's also like directing the fire and the anger at ICE officials or people with tied to ICE who are just following orders.
Yeah,
like there's civil servants who are following orders.
And also, they're creating the very chaos that they're then denouncing.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, there was a guy named Nick Sartor's out there. He's videotaping stuff. He got accosted. Like, where are the people on the left saying, hey, the vandalism's wrong, the accosting people's wrong, the violence is wrong? All these people who suddenly cared about ICE agents being masked have no problem with all these other hoodlums walking around with masks accosting people. Look, you have an absolute right in this country to oppose policies. It's fundamental to who we are. But I don't hear anyone on the left saying, hey, we cannot assault. We cannot come after these people. Vandalism is wrong. What does vandalizing get you? Let me explain. I mean, this is George Floyd 2.0. You destroy small businesses in Minneapolis, and somehow that furthers your cause?
Have any Democrats come out and said, let's not storm churches?
No,
I haven't seen a single one.
I mean, look, you can go further. When you had the members of Congress trying to, break into the ICE facilities. I mean, I agree. This is where, as Democrats, when we were in the headlines in the spring for this stuff, the Trump team was winning because we looked unreasonable and out of control. Now, when the headlines are, massive weaponry knocking on doors, the administration looks out of control. It is this race to neither side feels like they can back down.
Well, I said this last week, and I'll just say it again, because this started with our side being all fired up about Minnesota fraud. We were on the high ground. We were going in. And then I agree, perception-wise, it didn't look good how it played out, like in terms of what's going on television screens in the morning. But I think that this goes back now. This is that moment where just storming a church in the middle of a Sunday service reflect well. And again, no one on the Democratic Party saying, hey, this is wrong. Don Lemon's a clown. I haven't heard, is this now going to pinball back the other way?
One other thing that's sort of getting a bunch of attention from the weekend is this new New York Times report that White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt threatened, quote, "will sue your ass" to CBS.
She just said it was the president's threat.
Okay, so yes, the president was threatening this. If CBS didn't air the entirety of their 13-minute interview that he did with CBS just a few days ago, we don't have. New York Times published the audio of it. Let's see if we can bring that up right now.
Make sure you guys don't cut the tape. Make sure the interview was out in full.
Yeah, we're doing it. Yeah.
You said if it's not out in full, we'll sue your ass off. Oh, great. Okay.
He always says that. I think that one.
Oh man, I'm sorry. This just makes me chuckle.
How long did we talk?
Sean, let's jump out of this. Sean, you have been press secretary before. How many times have you threatened a reporter to sue their ass off? Probably a few. Just be honest.
I think.
Really?
I've definitely explained.
I'm sure it happens all the time, Dan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've done probably more of it since I've left because
I was just gonna say, not from the podium. People usually don't.
Yeah. I mean, I've probably, and again, it's more of, and I don't threaten them. I have people that like lawyers that do that. But I think there's also a difference. When you're CBS and you have the history that you do with the president of the United States, if the ground rules were that you're going to do something, meaning that, hey, we'll agree to this interview, you air it in full. Look, I think she's reminding people what they agreed to. I would guess. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it fantastic. No reporter loves to be threatened to have their ass sued, but I as a reporter, I often get comments like this. So I will say that. The other thing that I thought was noteworthy was the fact that this leaked at all. It could have only leaked from.
I wonder how.
Okay. And I just don't understand what did CBS think they gained by leaking this, or somebody on the CBS team? I don't know. It would just further alienate the White House. Dan, what's your take on this?
Well, I think this is one of the classic, like, we kind of giggle because it's Trump, but you talk about the outrage on the right over stuff. I mean, this is where the left pulls their hair out, right? Because I think, well, I personally feel like the lawsuits Trump did against the news organizations were outright shakedowns. And even if there is a handshake agreement to add it back with the 60-minute stuff, that was between Harris and the CBS people. The idea that Trump turned around and sued everyone, of course they settled because they all have business before the government. So they felt like, the lawyer sat there and did the risk analysis and said, just give him $10 million. It's not worth going through all of this because it's going to cost us more in legal costs. Trump's done this his whole career, not just in politics. Go back to business. He's used lawsuits as an intimidation tool to get his way. The pressure on the next Democratic administration to pull this type of stuff is going to be immense.
Can I just say, though, I mean,
immense.
Maybe I haven't. I'm trying to think if I've had a senior Democrat threaten to sue me if I did something. But I've certainly had. I'm thinking of a very specific one. Getting audio from a private Democratic caucus call. I was told by a senior, Democratic staffer, a very, very high up one, that if you write about this, we're done. We're never going to work with you again. And I said, haha, great. I'll see you. I'm going to run it anyway. So they do it too. It's not a lawsuit threat.
I was just going to say,
have you guys ever dealt with Philippe Reigns? Are you kidding me?
I love Philippe. Yeah.
There you go. He's he's a master at hardball.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's take some questions. Okay. The intervention in Iran. We, the people of 2026, live in a brand new paradigm. The tipping point of regime change is in the balance. People are shouting for freedoms from real oppression. What's your solution? What's the solution, Sean?
Well, Dan.
Yeah.
Your party's in power, buddy. You get to go first.
I know. We've talked about this before, but it's just not easy. And this is the difference between governing and campaigning. As I said last week, and I'll reiterate, I mean, Iran is it's got a nuclear weapon or weapons. There's a very unstable government. And so you don't know what you're going to get in the Middle East sometimes when you argue for regime change. So I think that's the problem. There's no easy answers. And we saw it just play out. We talked about it a little, where it's like, gosh, we should go in and do this. And then Israel says, who has been supporting regime change, says, oh, we're not ready because we know what they're going to do in return. So it's a great question, Victor. I just don't think there's an easy answer.
I think Trump's biggest benefit, because I think Trump completely got cold feet and backed off, is that I don't think any Democrat wants to go out and say, yeah, it should be regime change. Like I would have brought in the military, because it's not politically popular here. But I completely think Trump blinked. He got out over his skis, and people around him. And look, this is good for America, said, whoa.
Well, just to be clear, when you say get out of your skis, the Iranian foreign minister reached out to Steve Witkoff and basically said, hey, we'll pipe this down. Like Trump's threats saved lives. That's
the best way you can try to say that.
The question is for how long? I mean, they're saying 800. It wasn't just one protester who wasn't hanged. Apparently it was 800. But the question is, like, are they set free? Are they just hanged another day?
Well, hold on a second. Trump's initial statement was, if you harm the protesters. So then there's like 2,000 killed. And he's like, but if you publicly hang them, I mean, guys, he huffed, he puffed. And to Sean's point, when the military walked in and went through this, I'm glad he said, and by most accounts, Trump decided, no, this is a little risky. I think he's right. I think he's totally right.
Let's take another one.
Oh my God.
The deranged letter from Trump to Norway. Dan hit on this a little bit already.
I would just say hat tip to all the left meme makers of like the things of like Trump getting the Karate Kid medal, and Trump like Star Wars getting the medal from the, resistance to the to Darth Vader. Like there have been some pretty good, trophy presentations.
Are those on Twitter or are they on like Blue Sky or whatever you guys
both. These penetrated X. I don't know how Elon let it, but they did.
Sean, do you think the president really thought he was going to get the Nobel Peace Prize?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep.
But look,
explains the disappointment and how it still lingers.
Well,
yeah.
Can I just, one thing that's really interesting is I think that when you look at the timeline of how they decided to give the Peace Prize out, it was, I don't know that it even logistically was possible this year. I will say he's made it more difficult in the future.
Yeah.
That's
all
an
right,
understatement.
let's take some questions from the comments. Here we go. I still don't understand why we need Greenland when we are allies and they will let us have our military there. The people there do not want to be American. Shouldn't the people living there have a say?
What?
People have a say in their own
Oh,
government?
like years ago. Come on.
Nah.
Look, I don't. I think that this gets back to like, is it important? Absolutely, both in terms of rare earth materials and the strategic nature of it. If you go back to literally, I think the 1900s, when we like Greenland has always been something the United States has been eager to possess. I do think that the relationship that we have, like I don't know that we want it. Maybe meaning that like to make it a territory versus go in and have a massive strategic relationship, to me, is probably even a better solution where you have the military presence, you get access to the rare earth minerals or some percentage thereof, kind of what was on the table in Ukraine, and then not have to deal with the internal politics of it. Maybe isn't the worst deal in the world.
Yeah, you would think there would be some sort of be some sort of agreement where you have American companies who come in and they do, I mean, sort of what we've been talking about with Venezuela. Well, the president has been talking about with Venezuela, wanting these big companies to go in, get the oil. Maybe the agreement is here. The U.S. is going to fund going in and putting in the infrastructure to get these rare earth materials. And because of that, we're going to get X amount percent. The Greenland's going to get another percent. Other NATO allies are going to get Y percent. Like, it seems like, I don't know. But of course, Greenlanders perhaps don't want that. So,
well, and nor do the Danes, whose territory, I mean, it is crazy that we are saying to an ally, we are taking part of your territory because we want it.
Well, no, I'm talking about an agreement. An agreement. Like, that's what I'm not saying.
I get it. But even this, even just this, usually when you're going to, Sean, I think you made it, Sean, you had the point of like, it's an asset deal or whatever. It was like a land deal. It's like, okay, someone says, we're willing to sell. Great. We want to talk to you. Or like, let me make an offer you can't refuse. They didn't want to talk to us. They don't want to talk to us. I mean, you have the Brits coming out against us. I think the question is, does Europe fold or does Europe truly fight back? Because I think Trump will not respect them unless they really fight back.
But to your point, like I'm not like the president has a much stronger track record on deals in business than I do, but I feel like we could have gone in with a much more attractive position, which is to say the United States is willing to set up a situation where every Greenlander will get, $100 grand based off of royalties from rare earth minerals, and your children will never have to work again in their lives. If you allow X agreement, I think that would have from the jump probably been a much more attractive. I mean, I'm in Greenland and someone says to me, hey, it's freezing cold. You got 100 grand or 200 grand, never have to work again. I can go vacation in Miami. I probably would have taken the deal.
Or Gaza. Yeah.
Yeah. You get maybe it's a timeshare. You get a timeshare.
Right. Yeah. And some Venezuelan oil. Why not? Throw it in.
There you go. A little bit of everything. Let's do one more. Question. Waltz made a big deal out of announcing he activated the Minnesota National Guard. Where are they?
Well, he activated them. So there's a difference. I talked to somebody in the Minnesota National Guard. Like they're basically, they get activated, they get put on standby, and then mobilizing is a separate, it's like now go, right? So it's get ready to go, be ready to go, now go, execute. And they're at that phase. So I think he's just trying to get them ready.
Are they dreading what this looks like? I mean, Mayor Frey on TV was suggesting that we are approaching a point where we could have local, like law enforcement or like local National Guard clashing and actively fighting ICE protesters. Now, I should say, he said we should never get to that point. But the fact that he even teased it to me was like
not ICE
shocking.
protesters, ICE themselves.
Sorry,
ICE
themselves.
Yeah.
Yes,
Just
correct,
to
ICE themselves.
clarify.
But
which
no,
is more
floating this
horrifying.
notion that ICE could be fighting local law enforcement in the streets of Minnesota.
Crazy. I mean, just
Crazy.
this. I mean, look, this is where I know we're ending time. We're talking about how crazy Greenland is a little bit. We're talking about how crazy it's getting on the ground in Minnesota. And Democrats are totally contributing to the craziness in Minnesota. But I just think the average person is starting to say, God damn it, all of this, calm down. And I think politically, Sean, you may disagree. If I'm the DCCC and the DSCC, you're simply running ads saying there needs to be a check on this administration and accountability. And I don't know if a lot of voters are going to look past that. Even if the economy is booming by September, they may just say it is booming. I want this guy under control.
Well, let's just remember, I think we talk about this constantly, but right. So let's just say for the sake of, 40% on Team MAGA says, I love that the president's doing what he said he was going to do. He's following through on his campaign promises. He's getting results. Your side says whatever he does, we're against. Yeah. I think for a lot of that 20% in between that are swayable. And again, it's whether it's 10 or 20 doesn't matter. It's majority making. Says
or 5.
I don't know. I don't like the look of this. And they are persuaded. They gave Trump a chance. Yeah. And then they said, you might not be moving fast enough. But one of the things that we have to remember, politically speaking, you look at the Senate, you look at the House, you look at the results of the presidency over the past few cycles, it's close. And so that whether that's 10%, 15%, or 7%, the bottom line is it makes a majority, and you need to be concerned about that perception of whether your policies are working or not.
We are at time. Thanks for everybody who joined us today on this holiday. Sean, do you have a show this afternoon?
Are you kidding? Of course I do. But
of course I do. Never take any breaks.
Yeah, I don't take any.
We're going to break down the Patriots win. Look ahead to the Broncos. And
by the way, I will say this, and the end of that Bears game, fantastic,
amazing.
So left out. Maybe I should start watching. Is that football? That's football, right?
Yeah. I mean, Rachel, there was at the end of last night's Bears game, there were 2 spares, 1 home run, and it finished Love 30. It was everything that you want in the end of a football game.
Nice.
No, tonight I've actually got a different take or turn. We'll obviously do some news of the day, but then my old buddy Patrick Souchang, cancer doctor. The revelations, what we're doing tonight, it's insane. He has at the forefront of a cancer drug, and the Saudis are taking it to market, not the United States. And he begged Marty McCary, the FDA, talked to a bunch of U.S. folks, talked to the president himself, and it's the Saudis who are taking this cancer drug to market. We've got, from my estimation, I think 13,000 people on his waiting list to get cancer help. It's just, to me, with all the advances we've made in MAHA, if you want to know where we are in the fight for a cure for cancer and where we are as a government achieving that, tune in tonight at 6.
And I want to plug our YouTube channel right now before we say goodbye. We're getting our numbers up, but if you're watching the show right now and you've been watching it the whole time, you're obviously a big fan. Go to our YouTube page at the DC Huddle. If you go to YouTube, that's how you can search it. Subscribe. It really helps us, gets more eyes on the program. You can also sign up for a mailing list. Go to thedchuddle.com. Once you're on the mailing list, you can find the YouTube page there and also get updates on the show, our topics, etc. So yeah, we really appreciate your support. And guys, we will be back tomorrow.
And we had a great show on Friday afternoon with our morning with our premium subscribers. You want to find out what TV shows Rachel and I are watching these days, just to tease a little bit here.
Not a lot of
another one
TV
this
shows,
Friday.
given how much we're working.
Yeah. So if you haven't signed up, sign up. It's $10 a month or $100 for the year. But we had a great conversation with folks on Zoom.
Yes, we did. Thanks for everyone for coming. We will be back tomorrow, guys.
Yeah, we'll break down everything. Rachel will give us a full analysis tomorrow of the College National Football Championship. what she thought of the plays. It's going to be worth tuning into.
And I will
Oh
say,
my
in honor of
gosh.
MLK Day, take a moment to remember what he did. Yep.
Protest peacefully.